humans using the computers are the biggest vulnerability to using a computer. It's that
Yep.
simple.
Hey guys, Alfred and I were just catching up offline. Hey, Alfred, do you prefer to be called AJ or Alfred?
AJ works. It's the nickname I've gone through since I was like in kindergarten.
Okay, AJ. All right, one of my good friends is named AJ. Well, all right, guys. Welcome to the CNL podcast, where we dive deep into the minds of IT and security professionals to uncover their experiences, challenges, and best practices in today's ever-evolving landscape. I'm your host, Cedric Lusant, also known as your cyber expert, and today I'm thrilled to welcome Alfred AJ Saylor, IT director at a medical facility. Thanks for joining us today, AJ. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, my man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I can be peachy. I can't complain. Well, I always tell people that I can't complain, but I can. But what good would it do? Most people they stop listening. So
That's
at
fair.
some point, right? Uh, so yeah, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in the world of IT and cybersecurity?
Yeah. So I wasn't an IT or computer kid growing up really at all. I think it started about at 18. Some stuff happened where I had to kind of go kind of dig into some IT stuff to figure out a problem I kept having at my trailer that I used to live at with my friends, and the
Mhm.
process of that kind of introduced me to the world of IT. At the time, I was a waiter at a restaurant, and I reached out to a couple friends of mine and asked like if I wanted to get into this space, how would I go about doing it? And they actually pointed me to the certifications behind you right now, the CompTIA A Plus, Network Plus, Security Plus, and trained for that for a little while and was able to get a systems engineer job at a local school district. Moved from there to an MSP where I really got my IT education because
Mhm.
an MSP is like an IT a nerd gladiatorial arena.
Yes, like a couple
It's
years, a year at a regular in any industry, I would say that other than a consulting or MSSP, compared to a consultant or MSSP, 1 year's worth of experience at a MSSP is like 5 years equivalent to
it,
another
yes.
another industry.
Yeah, because it's really it's just you get to put your hands on stuff, so much expensive equipment you have no business touching at the experience level you have. And it's kind of an organic way to experience and to learn really, really quickly because you're normally surrounded by people who are like 10, 20 years your senior.
Mhm.
They're all nerds just like you. They're all ambitious just like you. And you're managing several different IT companies. And, the more prominent slash faster you learn, the more responsibility you get.
Mhm.
And then, I found that, like you said before, I worked there for 3.5, almost 4 years, and I feel like in that time I got maybe 10 years worth of real world IT experience, which is when I moved to my current job now. I went from I was a help desk agent there when I started at the MSP, and then moved on to network administrator, and then moved here to director. So that's a little bit, basically my background summed up in about 5 minutes, I think, for the most part.
Hey, that's well, pretty well said. Did you face any challenges when you were trying to break into the field?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said before, I was not an IT guy as a kid. Computers and stuff really didn't come naturally to me. I'm way more of a people person. I was always in the customer service industry. I wanted to be a occupational therapist when I was in high school. So I'm much more of a people centered person. But I found, even though I struggled with the IT side at first, that was a huge boon. The people skills and the communication skills was a huge boon getting into IT because it's one of the factors I think really makes it hard to be in IT because you have to be able to explain slash teach and also communicate in a way that doesn't sound either condescending or information overload or anything like that. And
Yep.
you also have to balance that with running the risk that you're not really giving the client real information, or you're
Hmm.
almost white lying to them to a certain extent. But again, that comes down to reading the person and the clientele and knowing what they would really want want to hear and what they are going to be able to interpret and stuff like that. So yeah, I ran into a huge bunch of challenges, especially at the beginning. But like I said, at an MSP, I was really fortunate to have just the most amazing group of mentors. That
Keyword mentors. And I tell
yeah,
people that
absolutely.
that's what it makes a difference, because when you got a mentor that can really help you, that'll help you get the A to Z much faster than all the stumbling that you would do on your own. And sometimes that some companies, they may not be as forgiving during those stumbles, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And the real thing too is that I think a lot of the learning I did at the MSP was so hands-on. And so like as long as it looked like I was trying and I was passionate, I was really trying to fix this problem. I really could struggle with it as long as I wanted to bring it to one of my mentors, and it wasn't like oh, you're dumb, you're just doing this wrong or whatever. It
Mhm.
was okay, we're gonna walk through this step by step, and I couldn't you couldn't pay for that level of you know mentorship just about anywhere else. It was the difference between me making it and not making it, to be completely honest, because like you probably know, in this space, everything moves exponentially fast.
Yep.
CompTIA's certifications only last for 3 years. So,
Yep.
and then you have to go retake some portions of the test to make sure you're up to speed. So, this world moves too quickly for one person to be on top of everything at all time. And that's why it's so important in IT to be part of a team or to have resources you can pull on.
Exactly, because you got to stay up to date. What I tell people, because I mentor individuals, actually, it's funny you say you can't pay for that level of service. I thought the same thing too when I was breaking in, and I realized that there was a gap. There was a gap here. So I did start. It's not a shameless plug. I started a cybersecurity mentorship and training
Okay.
program that actually does just that. Helps you from
No, but
technical coaching to career coaching, all that good stuff from A to Z. So you
yeah,
can
no, and
actually.
absolutely. It's a huge thing that we need in this space, though. We need communicators and teachers and mentors
Mhm.
that can show you what happens, because no book can prepare you to troubleshoot. Troubleshooting is the key, and
Yep.
that is a art form as much as it is a technical diagnosis of what's going wrong. There's
Hmm.
so many different ways to break a problem in half. And the key to breaking the problem in half is the experience of knowing what you're working with and what could be causing the issue.
Yep.
And sometimes the first thing you do just doesn't work. And you wouldn't know that until you try breaking the problem in half and realizing, okay, it's still happening. So it's clearly not this part. But
Hmm.
teaching somebody how to do that, like I'm sure you've run into, that is something that is desperately needed, because it is one of the key fundamentals of the space is
Yep.
troubleshooting and being able to do that.
And I could definitely agree with that. And that's what I try to tell any of our members that I get to mentor is I try to preach, make sure you understand the OSI model. It may seem like it's not relevant in any shape or capacity, but that is going to be your Bible to being able to break things down into what specific layer that problem may be on, so that way you can understand, okay, it's definitely not a physical problem, that it's powered on, it's plugged in, we're getting all the right lights for the physical perspective. Okay, now let's move to the next layer and let's see exactly where we are. And you keep working your way and you split it into chunks that way. But I can
Yeah.
definitely agree with that. I feel like that's the most important skill that anybody who is coming into this industry they need to have, because if you
Yes.
and it not only from the technical perspective, but being able, like how you were saying, being able to tailor the message to the audience. Like you gotta, because if you say the wrong words, that person might just check out. They might be in front of you, they might be listening to you, but they're not understanding you. So
Right.
that's one of the key things, and that people person skill that you have, that's gonna do. I'm sure it's done you justice throughout your career already, because the soft skills, if not, they
Yeah.
matter more than the technical skills. I feel like.
No, yeah, well, and in this space too, as a little critique of this space, I feel like IT has a strange quirk of having a very wide range of competency. There
Mhm.
is, and not like people are dumb or anything like that. I know people who can code stuff that looks lifelike inside of like different types of apps, but struggle navigating the control panel. So
Yeah.
like there's so much to learn in IT. And a lot of end users or a lot of people who just know a little bit about IT, the words you say when you're talking to a client are really important, because things like cloud or server or anything like that can mean very can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So like you said, communicating that message in a way where you understand your clients' uh, understanding of IT and can tailor that message for them in a way where they walk away feeling like, okay, I know that he knows what he's talking about, and I feel like I have a grasp on if this problem happens again, I know how to communicate it to him. And that's really the trust that you need to form, because what's important, the most important part of your job is that the people that you're working for, your clients, because everybody's your client.
Yep.
Everybody, and no matter how far down they are exactly the same. They're your client, and they need to be comfortable communicating to you like, hey, I have this weird thing keep popping up. And even if they think it's stupid, it's not. It could be totally benign. And then thankfully, 90% of cases, it probably will be. But it only takes that 10% that they're like, he's gonna give me shit for this. I'm not gonna, like, I don't want him to think I'm stupid. Like that building that trust that they feel like they can come to you even with something they feel is stupid is critical in this space, because so humans using the computers are the biggest vulnerability to using a computer. It's that simple.
Yep, and definitely, especially if you're dealing with something where time is of the essence, and usually when it comes to incident response, that timing is everything. You want that user, if they do click a link, they run a payload on their system, and some weird stuff starts happening. You want them to be able to come to you and tell you, so you can start implementing your incident response plan versus them just trying to cover it up. The next thing you know, the next day you're coming in and you're dealing with a ransomware attack, right?
Exactly, and it's funny too, because I feel like a lot of people will rate themselves a lot lower on how well they can use a computer than they actually are, because there's just factors to using a computer in daily life that people just don't use so often that they just kind of write it off. Like, oh, I don't know how to, like, I have a lot of people who are like really, really smart in their field, and they won't change their display settings to mirror to their other monitor. They'll just use a copied one for like 2 months because they're like, I just don't know how to do that. When a quick Google search, as you know, would show you it's super easy, but they just don't. They're like, I'm not very good with computers. Yeah, you kind of are, but like you're really not that bad at computers. But a computer and all the weird quirks that can happen with a computer on everyday usage can seem like it's really unpredictable. And so a lot of people just write that off as, I just don't understand what's happening. When in reality, it's like, yeah, it's just being weird. Close the app, reopen it, restart the damn thing, it'll be fine. Like a lot of people see computers more as people, or more as like these weird magic boxes, when in reality, they're actually a lot more like humans. They're kind of quirky. They act a little weird sometimes. Sometimes they just need a nap or restart, you know what I mean? And they're normally fine. Anything past that, that's why I'm here. You know what I mean? And a lot of people I've learned due to training, and my job specifically, I'm really big on, end user training, and in a way where I kind of go department to department, just kind of, check in with them, see how they're doing, and ask them if they have any weird questions, anything they would like to change. Like, did you guys know you could do this? I found that just like talking about that kind of stuff, showing them that stuff in real time, has been the difference between me, like, finding out a printer hasn't worked in 2 months and they've just been dealing with it and learning right away, and they fixed it themselves and they're just letting me know, which is just, it's crazy how like more competent people normally are with computers when they can see it work for the first, like see somebody walk through the simple 2 steps to fix it.
Yep, definitely can agree with that. I want to touch on a point that you made earlier, about the wide competency range. And this is what I try to tell anybody who's just trying to break into the field, right? Because it's like, yeah, I want to get in, I want to be a cybersecurity professional. Okay. What do you, what area of cybersecurity?
What part? That's like saying, I want to go to the medical field. And it's like, oh, really?
What do you want to do specifically? What position do you want to play? I try to tell everybody, and this is a great analogy that you just said, the medical field. I either use that or I use the sports analogy with the offense and defense, but the medical analogy really helps break it down even more, because there's all these different niches, all these different areas that you can go and specialize in, and you can spend 20 years in one field and you'll never be an expert on everything. Never. Nope. You'll be an expert on the things that you have got your experience in, that you have touched. but there are so many different things, pieces of technology that are being innovated and implemented. And if you're not within that industry or you're studying it on your own, you're not going to have that level of expertise as the person who has.
Mhm.
So, it's always, you always got to understand that, hey, you're never going to be the smartest guy in the room. And even if you feel like you are, you don't know everything. So don't think you do.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times, I feel like there's a big, strong mentality in the IT space for this like lone wolf. Like I have, I've got a bunch of certifications. I've got a degree. I'm really good at the, X, Y, and Z. And, a lot, and I was taught by some of these people, like they are really, really good. But even the people that train me know that if they're, the teamwork, like being in a team or having the resource to be able to just have a fresh pair of eyes look at a situation, especially a complicated troubleshooting situation, I'm trying to think back on a particular issue I had. We had a situation where a VPN wasn't working, and it seemed really simple on its outset, where SSL VPN wouldn't connect, and it was giving a really generic error code. And I banged my head against this for like 2 days. I just couldn't figure it out. Eventually, I brought it to a teammate of mine, and he realized that like way back in the troubleshooting process that I didn't, like you said, with the OSI layer, I just needed to go one layer deeper to realize that this was causing the problem all along. And that doesn't mean that doesn't mean the person trying to figure out is dumb or not good at IT, but like a fresh pair of eyes on something that can be very difficult, very complicated, especially in the world of IT, is everything. It can save you hours and hours and hours of time. So going at this, like you can figure everything out, even if you are even if you are the smartest person in the room, it doesn't matter. It's about getting the job done for the best for the client, for your job and stuff like that. But it's also about not killing yourself trying to lone wolf everything about this industry, which is one of the biggest industries now in the world, and it's probably going to continue to grow to be that, because technology is already integrated in literally everything we do, and will only continue to be more so as it gets more as the time goes on.
2 letters, AI.
Yeah, exactly. What's that?
Yeah.
I haven't heard about that one before. I haven't heard about that one before.
Although, and especially with AI being, my last guest, they said it even the best way. It's being foisted onto us,
Yes.
and in every way. I just got the prompt for Apple Intelligence, with Copilot, with Office 365. There's so much in every way, shape, or form. It's like the .com where everyone was getting money to spin up apps and create websites. Now everyone's getting money. If you got a product idea to leverage some AI in it, they're just building Chat GPT wrappers into.
That's a good analogy. That's exactly how it is too, because it's filtering all the way down to the end user level. My fiance uses Chat GPT to help her with like responding to small things on for her college work. So like AI, just like the .com reference, it kind of filters all the way down. I think that's why it's so prevalent too, is because the benefits aren't just for us in IT. The benefits are for like anybody who needs to write an email. If something can write your email for you better than you can in like 30 seconds or like less than a couple seconds, but why wouldn't you use it, right? And so it's absolutely being like that. And companies, especially like Google and stuff like that, they've now, like your previous guest said, they've integrated into literally every process. If you Google something right now, it will literally just answer the question
with Gemini. With Gemini. Like when that first popped up, because they did that change strategically, because they've been working on Gemini for some time. But it was when OpenAI really blew up, and they're like, oh yeah, nah, we need some of that. We need some of that. We're losing the OpenAI. Yeah. Roll out Gemini now. And their search, their model was giving out some crazy things at first, and they weren't linking to any of the sources at first. Now you'll see that there's links to everything that Gemini is trying to tell you, so you can at least go double check it for yourself. But yeah, it's pretty wild.
I just want everybody to acknowledge that Google is now Googling the answer for you, and then giving you the Google answer. I just think that that's very funny and ironic sometimes, where it's like I Googled something and Google on my behalf Googled it for itself and then gave me an answer for the it just gave like it's just funny because it's like it's redundant in a certain sense. Now it
But
can help
it
shortcut some
works.
stuff, but it just seems so redundant when you're looking at it. You're like, how to do this, and it's like this is how to do it. I'm like, okay, well I could have just clicked on that link, but thank you Google for googling it for me.
Yeah, yeah, that and sometimes I find myself like I'll click on the link just to double check the integrity of the source and it's right and I'm like, wow,
Mhm.
thanks.
Yeah, it's a dangerous game too because
Yeah.
like what you're saying at the beginning, especially in the earlier days of Gemini, it wouldn't link to sources,
Yep.
and it wasn't really good at interpreting what it was reading, especially at the beginning. It's gotten a
Mhm.
lot better. It's going to get dramatically and exponentially better as Google puts more and more money into it. But it was weird, especially at the beginning, where you would be Googling answers and I'd see Gemini give me something where I'm like, that doesn't even seem like a sentence. Like, I don't understand what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah.
Is the answer correct? Am I even like it's funny. Bing's Copilot is another one too. Copilot's, I believe, linked to what is Microsoft's voice assistant called?
Cortana or
Cortana. Yeah, if you try to disable Cortana or Copilot, Windows will just crash on you, I think. Like
yeah,
it's
there was there
integrated.
yeah, there was some I think I know what you're referring to because there was some researchers that uncovered when they wanted to turn off like the recall turn off the recall feature or Cortana, they'd get the blue screen of death. And it's like, okay, wow, you've made it, you've interwoven this functionality to the point where if we even try to get rid of it, we're the system it renders the system unusable. But I think they did fix that. I didn't have to follow with that. One of our listeners will for sure send us an email or something if we're if we're misstating that incorrectly.
Yeah.
But what you know, my next question is, you know, what do you feel right now is the biggest security threat that you're seeing right now in your industry, and how are you combating it?
Well, so I've got like kind of two answers to this question. One is the easy answer, which is like just human interaction with computers is always the biggest threat. I think ransomware and crypto ransomware, the spam, the phishing attempts nowadays are so sophisticated. And they're so like dynamic due to AI, by the way.
It's only going to get worse. The
In
cat and
order
mouse.
to trick the most vulnerable aspect. I think overall that's the real answer. In my
Mhm.
particular industry, dealing with HIPAA as I do, it's normally just those though. Those are the most common security risks that I have, I think, most often, and they can be the most substantial. But normally, it's just like a nurse leaving a computer open or um, somebody saying something they probably shouldn't in range of a patient to hear, something really simple like that. But I think the highest security risk nowadays is actually going back before is AI fueled attacks like DDoS attacks. Or just the AI probing that goes on with firewalls. Like just if you have a firewall, it's constantly just people are just poking at it, just seeing
Yep.
like, hey, you're gonna respond on this port, you're gonna talk back to me, you're gonna do this, and the moment
You're vulnerable.
say hello, you're just going to get bombarded by just random requests and crap until you block them or otherwise. And I think that's really the key. I think that's the most important and most like worrying like problem in our space, especially going forward, are that the attacks that were bad are now being like dramatically made worse by being able to be anonymously controlled or auto magically controlled by AI.
Hmm. I feel like it's always going to be an ever cat and mouse game when it comes to facing cybersecurity threats. Which is why one of the reasons why I decided to even get in this field because I'm like, it's always going to be job security, right? Because there's
Right.
always there's
It's
this,
a puzzle.
yeah.
It's a puzzle. I like that aspect of it, even though it worries me. The anxiety is also the motivating factor. Also the just I enjoy the uh, I enjoy the puzzle aspect of it where I'm like I'm constantly trying to go back and refine and trying to make this better, make it more efficient and stuff like that. So I totally agree. It was one of the reasons I one of the reasons I fell in love with the thing myself.
So yeah, we've got a few. I got a few more questions for you before we wrap up here. I want to kind of talk a little bit more into like career advice. You know, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out in their journey in IT and cybersecurity?
Probably the same advice that I got, which is that it depends on how serious you are on it. If you're just dipping your toes in it, internet. Like the internet is the best source of getting your toes in on this space. There's so many different Professor Mezer, for example, has free videos who, can show you which he
Yep.
walked through the A plus, Network Plus, and Security Plus. He was an amazing resource that I used,
It
and
was for
it's
me
free.
too.
Yeah,
I give him all the credit, and I direct traffic from our program to him all the time. We leverage him
yeah,
as a part of some of our curriculum. He's been around for some time. I've seen him revise his course every time the CompTIA new certs come out. That's the guy to go to get the lowdown on like
that's
what's the new
awesome.
difference. Because every
Yeah,
time I've leveraged him along with some other resources, I've been able to pass first time.
yeah. He was a big reason. I think the biggest advice I would have to people getting in here is twofold. One, if you want to get into it, I think that certifications and getting into a job, if you want to go to college for it, that's totally fine as an avenue. But a lot of jobs in IT have financial support for colleges like that, and a lot
Mhm.
of times a certification and a little bit of experience is very, very. It's looked as is similar to a degree in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and to interject there, because I've interviewed hundreds of candidates. I've had kids come right out of school, master's degree in cybersecurity, information systems management, but then you start trying to talk to them about Active Directory and group policy, and they don't understand. And it's like, yeah, you actually need to sit back and you got to understand a little bit more about the landscape. Um, because you got some people who I've interviewed too who didn't have any certifications, but they've had hands-on experience from tinkering in their own labs and just previous internships that they ran through either family, friends, or whatnot that exponentially outperform those who with degrees and
Yeah,
sometimes with certifications. I feel like degrees and certifications they're great. They open the door to the conversation, but at the end of the day, it's you and how you articulate your thoughts and how you tailor the message to the audience. That's
yeah,
what actually gets you the
yeah.
job. I feel like. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, no, that was my second point. My second point is if you're going to get in IT, don't forget about the people skills. That is
Yep.
my second biggest advice to anybody trying to get into this space is that you can be the smartest guy in the room, but if you can't talk to anybody else in that room, nobody's going to want to hire you. And
Exactly.
I just think that uh, the IT field is filled with like some of the smartest, most like ambitious guys I've ever met. But people skills, communication skills, being able to reach out to people and talk with them in a way that doesn't feel like you're like not necessarily making fun of them, but just information overload slash condescending to them. Those factors above and beyond, are I think the key to getting into this industry. And afterwards, it's all about education. Like you have behind you, it's all about learning where you can, getting the resources, and being able to pull resources from other people or mentorships and stuff like that. All about continuing education for there. But just to get in, it's all about getting your toes wet, like getting your toes wet with online, and then also the people skills and being able to communicate.
Yeah, what I try to tell people too is just that you got to have that willingness to be a lifelong learner because if you don't have that, you'll get burnt out quick in this field
Oh my
because
God,
everything
yes.
is always changing. And, to maintain these certifications, you have to do X amount of continuing professional education every year.
Mhm.
Basically, 30 credits a year, 30 to 40, depending on the certification, at least 30 to 40 credits, hours worth of class to keep upskilling yourself because the things that you've learned years ago may not be applicable to this day and age, and they may not actually be useful. But
Yeah.
that's a great point. We'll wrap things up. I got a couple fun personal touch questions for
No
you.
problem.
So when you're not fighting the cyber threats and bad guys, what do you where can we find you? What do you enjoy doing for fun?
I'm a pretty boring dude. I sit at home with my fiance. I play video games with my friends, and we um, basically
PC or
just
console?
all of them, my
Oh,
man. Wherever the game comes out on. Okay, I've been a I if I've been anything, I'm a lifelong gamer. Okay, I've been a
Yep.
video game person for as long as I've been able to hold a controller. But yeah, no, I think for the most part, I mean, I live in the middle of of Indiana. So, not a whole lot of crazy fun things to do here, but video games are great, and hanging out with family and friends is
Watch,
always
watch
awesome.
one of our listeners from Indiana is gonna write in and be like, "There's
Hey,
a
listen,
lot of fun."
if anybody from Indiana disagrees, feel free. We'll argue about it. Well, you can send me and we can go back and forth all you want. It's perfectly fine with me. I'll die on that hill. But yeah, no, most of my life is, it honestly is, 50% work, 50% fun with my family and stuff like that.
Yeah, most definitely. We'll exchange some emails. Let's exchange some gamer tags. I'm more of an Xbox. I game on everything, but when I do, it just really depends on what games. If I'm on PlayStation, it's usually just for God of War. Okay,
Heck yes.
God of
Yes.
War, God of
I
War. But
love God of
everything
War.
else
Oh my gosh.
is usually I'm Xbox. So
20 the God of War 2016 was borderline a religious experience when I played it the very first time. So yeah, I totally agree there. I've replayed God of War and God of War 2 a couple of different
yeah,
times.
I'm gonna date myself here, but I was playing God of War when I was in my single digits of age. And my mom didn't know this, but boy, did I love that game.
Oh man, the original God of Wars, man, they were not for kids either.
Bangers,
Holy cow,
bangers.
they were good games.
They were definitely
Oh,
bangers. Well, hey AJ, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. I definitely would love to have you on again. Maybe we can go a little
absolutely.
bit more into a technical, deeper dive conversation. But thank you again for sharing your incredible insights and experience with us today. Where can our guests find you online to connect with you?
Just basically LinkedIn. I don't have a whole lot of social media. Just LinkedIn for the most part.
Okay, all right, fair enough. We'll catch up with folks with AJ on LinkedIn. Don't forget to subscribe to the CNL podcast for more conversations with IT and security leaders just like AJ. Until next time, stay safe, stay secure.